there was a gentleman, I just covered him on my YouTube channel. I don't know who he is. His name is, I think, Noah Carl. He's a young, I think, postdoc at Cambridge University, who, from all I know, is a very reasonable gentleman who had been invited to speak at a conference on intelligence. And because of that, a bunch of folks decided to put together an open letter arguing that Cambridge University should not hire this guy and so on. This has now become the standard way by which debates are resolved. You sign these open letters. So I had another guy on, and you should definitely check this guy out. His name is Alessandro Strumia. He is a physicist. Do you know this case?
No.
He's a physicist at the University of Pisa, who is also was a research scientist at CERN, the nuclear research center in Geneva. He was invited to speak at a gender and theoretical physics conference. Everything is about identity politics. And, of course, the narrative was going to be, women are discriminated against in physics, and, we need to help them, improve their lot in physics and so on. So he got up and he presented bibliometric data. So let me just, for your viewers, explain what that is. Bibliometric data is data that quantifies science. So, for example, if I want to know which discipline cites which other discipline, I will look at citation patterns across disciplines. Does economics ever cite physics? Does physics ever cite economics, right? So bibliometric data is a way to parameterize science. And so what he did is he looked at, for a given job in physics, if a woman gets a job versus if a man gets a job, how many citations did they have? Citation is basically how many other people have cited your work when you published it. So you and I might have published 50 papers each, but you've been cited 10,000 times, I've been cited 2,000 times. Therefore, your work is more influential, even though we've both published the same amount of papers. And he showed, through very objective data, that for a given position, women were getting the jobs at much lower citations. Well, that was construed as terribly offensive, terribly sexist, Nazi-like. And so over 1,600 scientists using the appellation Particles for Justice. I'm not making this up.
What?
You can go...
Particles for Justice?
Young Jamie can check it out, yeah. And you can read their letter. And it includes, I think, one or two of your former guests who have become a very anti-fan, not Antifa. Because to me, they're sounding like intellectual cowards and fools.
Who are these people?
I think one of them is Sean Carroll. You know who that is? I think he's been on the show.
Sure. He's been on several times.
Yeah. So he's on that list. And I don't know. I don't want to misspeak, but I think maybe Neil deGrasse Tyson is on it, but maybe not. So that one I'll hold off on that one. But definitely Sean Carroll is on it because I've even tagged him. And I said, hey, come on my show. Let's discuss it. So the letter was basically... It starts off and it says, we will not tolerate that someone within our community, I'm paraphrasing, will question the humanity of anyone based on their race, their gender orientation. He did no such thing. All he did was report bibliometric data to either support the contention that women in physics were being discriminated against or not. That should not yield an open letter that chastises him in the way that they did. Now, the only thing that he did incorrectly, in my view, and he's admitted to it, he came on my show recently, at one point during the presentation, he showed his bibliometric profile versus two other women that had gotten a job over him. So he personalized it. And in doing that, some people thought that was inappropriate. And that's fair. Maybe it's not a nice thing to do to present, your CV versus someone else in a public conference. Maybe we can discuss that. But the idea that we can't use bibliometric, objective, scientific data to either prove or disprove a narrative is insane. And yet 1,600 people decided to sign that letter.
That does seem ridiculous, especially when it's an accusatory narrative. You're accusing people of sexual discrimination, and then the scientific data shows otherwise.
Exactly.
But they're looking for equality of outcome, right? They're looking for an equal amount of female physicists, an equal amount, and that's... you're not going to get an equal amount of people interested in it. So then what you really have to show is you have to determine that there's been something that's holding those people back from achieving that goal, that there's some sort of a concerted effort to keep women out of that field. That's what should be demonstrated. And when you demonstrate that, I think here's the glass half full version of that. You're looking at that bibliometric data. What that shows is that people are encouraging women to get into this, that it's the opposite.
Right.
That instead of them being held back, they're looking to even out the playing field and help these women along. The problem with that is then it makes it look like the women aren't as capable as the men, or they're not as effective as the men with their work. And, that's bad for everybody. That's bad for women and for men. It's bad for science because it makes it look like you're not being objective, which is what all we want. Everyone who's not a scientist like myself, what I want more than anything is to know that if you're a scientist, I want to know that what you're telling me is a fact.
Right.
What I don't want is your own political spin on that fact because you don't want to be criticized at work by radical feminists or radical leftists or any people that might in some way potentially misconstrue your actions and your thoughts as being sexist or or fill in the blank, homophobic, transphobic, whatever the fuck it is that you're scared of. I don't want to hear that. What I want to hear is that you're looking at reality.
Right.
There are brilliant women out there. There's brilliant men out there. And a lot of those brilliant women choose not to do the same fields as brilliant men. And as long as no one's holding them back, that shouldn't be a problem. The problem is got to be in someone being held back, someone discriminating, someone trying to keep you out. And you're going to have to demonstrate that. And I'm sure that exists. I'm sure there's women out there that are hearing this right now that have experienced all sorts of discrimination, sexual harassment, and they have their own personal stories. This is true. But that is not necessarily why the data reflects that there's more men that are successful at this. It could seriously, this is what people are really uncomfortable with, seriously represent that there's differences in the sexes.